Well, Cara, let's just jump right into this and let's start with you. You oversaw the AFN office under Matthew Coon Come. How do situations like this one affect the staff at AFN?
Well, the staff need to know this right up front. And as Chief of Staff to National Chief Matthew Coon Come, this was my one directive to the staff who all worked in the National Chief's office is, if you ever implicate the National Chief, you're fired, plain and simple. All of the staff work for the National Chief. The National Chief is the only elected person in that organization, elected nationally, rather. And we serve the National Chief and all the interests of the chiefs. You know, the staff have a responsibility, a very serious responsibility to the National Chief. This, I think, is what we're seeing is the inadequacies of the management and the upper management and the CEO, the revolving door of the CEOs. I don't even know who the CEO is today. Our CEO was Native, and it was a man named Dan Brandt, who was very, very highly effective. And the staff were aligned with the vision, the purpose, and the mission of the organization and what the chiefs created the organization to be. So it's a very serious time, a very serious place. Working in the office of the National Chief, people need to understand this. This is not playtime. The office of the National Chief is a very high-powered, high-level office every day. Every day you're under extraordinary pressure because you're responsible to all of the chiefs of the country. You're dealing with the government at all time. It demands 100%, you know, and you don't have an 8 to 4 day. You have 18-hour days every day. That's the responsibility in the office of the staff.
And Dan, I'll come to you on this one. On social media, there's a speculation that the call for a forensic audit was seen as a threat by some, and that's the actual reason she was removed. Do you think there's anything to that?
Well, they're saying a lot of things. They're saying that it's sexism, that there's, yes, that allegation that they simply wanted to, you know, cut her off before the audit actually got done. It was a coup. I mean, there's no question about that. They got rid of her because they didn't want her there for some reason. And they created this little meeting so they could get the numbers. I think you have to get rid of the National Chief with 60% of the voting chiefs at this meeting. So, you know, there's problems there with the process. It was all in secret. There was no people outside. It was all online. And it was really done very quickly just before, you know, this AGA coming up in Halifax. And it's created a lot of suspicion among people out there who are wondering, what's the real motive going on? A lot of rumors and speculation. Personally, I think it's been coming on for a long time. It's not just Chief Archibald. I think that this kind of coup, this power grab has been coming on for at least a decade or more.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Pam, you've been very active on social media about all of this. So are you able to share with us some of your thoughts on what's going on?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. I think the most significant thing for people to understand is that if there are workplace issues that involve alleged violations of policy, that is something that the CEO has to address. That's with the CEO and the staff. That's completely separate. That's administrative. That's not in the political realm. Similarly, there's something called progressive discipline. You know, like if there is a violation of an alleged violation, then there's something called progressive discipline. You don't go from here's a violation of policy to now we're going to go take it into the political realm. I mean, anti-harassment policies are very, very important. Again, a workplace discipline issue, barring something criminal like sexual assault or something, but to allow staff and the executive and some regional chiefs to use this as their, okay, this is going to be our strategy to get rid of this national chief who is strong-willed and assertive and wants to do things her way based on what the chiefs told her to do, questioning everything, questioning the status quo, the old boys club, wanting an audit, wanting to know what past national chiefs were doing. She's bringing forward all of the questions, concerns that we as grassroots people have been saying for decades. And I think it's long past time that we understand this. This isn't about whether or not some workplace policy was violated. There would have been progressive discipline. This is something much deeper.
Well, and Cara, what impact does this kind of removal have on the long-term health of the AFN?
Well, the entire validity of the organization's in question now by way of the actions of the regional chiefs. Does it serve its purpose? What was it created to do? And the office of the national chief and the sanctity of the office of the national chief is now in question. It's been tarnished and diminished and reduced by regional chiefs and the political agenda. So I think going into Halifax, you're going to find a lot of discussion of where do we go from here? Are we going to remain part of this organization? I think the organization is really in jeopardy. It's in jeopardy in a lot of ways. It needs to be audited, not just a financial audit. There needs to be an organizational audit for the reasons I just stated. But the chiefs want to know about their treaty and their rights. And does the organization still speak about rights? Or what does it become today? You know, we need to take a clear, hard look at it of what purpose it's serving and who is it serving. Is it serving the chiefs? Is it serving the nations? Or are they self-serving? You know, are they the extension of ISK these days? You know, and we've seen this before. We've had to kill the Governance Act when Matthew Coon Come was national chief. Now we know, you know, there's the UNDA that was announced on June 21 is being co-written by people inside that organization. That's really problematic because the chiefs aren't being made aware. So once again, is this organization relevant any longer? We know that there's a discussion in the country that's carrying on that treaties 1 to 11, for example, you know, their intention to operate separate. The treaties 8 in Alberta, they pulled out altogether. They don't even participate in the organization. Never seen this sort of exodus. Rather than the organization bringing the nations together, they're all divided and dividing, and especially by their most recent actions. It's a shame. I think that we have to listen to what some of the chiefs are saying when they go and give them back the platform and the authority that belongs to them. Because I know there's a shift going on. A charter's been amended where the authority is being given to regional chiefs, which is wrong.
Well, and Pam, as Cara mentioned, the AFN General Assembly is coming up next week in Halifax. What are you looking for in that meeting?
Well, I'm looking for chiefs to literally take their power back from the executive and the regional chiefs who are not nationally elected or empowered. RoseAnne was elected from the chiefs in assembly. RoseAnne's job was saved by a vote from the chiefs in assembly the last time they attempted a very embarrassing coup. This issue, if brought at all, and I don't think it should have been brought to the political realm, if you're going to bring it, you're already having an assembly. You have to wonder, why wouldn't you put this issue before the chiefs again? I mean, I would be too embarrassed to if I was the executive and regional chiefs, but why are you doing that? And I guess my last point in all this is I really want the chiefs to consider, is this how you want to be represented? Not whether or not you agree with one regional chief or another or about policies. Is this how you want to be represented? And really question, was this a legal removal? Because to my mind, it's not a legal removal. She's still the national chief as far as I'm concerned. There's no way that she was given a fair opportunity to present a defense to all the chiefs, and for the chiefs, as many as needed, to be able to ask questions and for her to be able to respond. The kinds of interactions you get at a chiefs in assembly, not a secret, tightly controlled online meeting that even APTN couldn't be a part of.
Well, and Dan, I'll come to you with this one here. You live on a First Nation, so what are you hearing? What are the grassroots people saying about this issue?
Nothing at all. Crickets. Basically, they're looking at all of this and they're embarrassed by the situation, and they don't want to have anything to do with it, to tell you the truth. You know, they see this kind of dysfunction on the local level here at the band council, and they just can't be bothered. They're more concerned about what's happening a mile from here than what's happening in Halifax next week. They just can't be bothered with it. And that really speaks to the organization. It's lost touch with people, you know, and that's not something that, you know, you can pile onto the executive or onto the national chief. That's the chief's problem. They have really abandoned the organization. There was a chance for them to, you know, impose their will, their direction on on the Assembly of First Nations, and they did not do that. Instead, they let the regional chiefs take over power, throw out the national chief from the executive. And who's going to come into that job next? How are they going to work with this regional council, with, you know, the executive council, with regional chiefs from, you know, basically calling the shots? Who is calling the shots? And that's going to be the main question coming up in Halifax. The chiefs should have declared some kind of a special meeting where they can address these fundamental questions for the organization. Instead, they're going to get buried by a whole bunch of resolutions thrown at them at the last minute, saying, let's get on with business. Meanwhile, you know, fundamental questions about the organization. Will it exist? And how will it function, if at all, next week or next year?
Well, Pam, I'll leave the last word to you, kind of building off of what Dan had said there. So how does the AFN move on next week and into the future?
Next week, I think the majority of the chiefs need to stand up, take their power back. They elected a national chief, and until those chiefs in assembly remove a national chief, she's still the national chief. They need to really question the regional chiefs that they elected in their regions and whether or not they're doing their job. And they need to take a hard look, just like Dan said, at the AFN. How could staff be allowed to bring this into the political fora? They could only have been enabled by the executive and regional chiefs. And so they need to do something about this, or this is the death knell. And I've been very critical of AFN, but this could literally be the death knell where they don't represent anyone anymore. And all of it's really embarrassing. And it can't be laid at the feet of the national chief. It takes two to tango, and the regional chiefs have not done their job here.
Well, Pam, Dan, Cara, I want to say thank you, miigwech, to each of you for taking a bit of time for us and sort of breaking this down and taking a hard look at this, and certainly plenty to think about in the future as we move into next week here as well. So again, thank you, miigwech, to each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.